So what can we do about it? Can we try to reverse this process? Can we go back this way? What we need to do is do something like this that has a lot of hands involved, because this is not something our Uncle Corey can do by himself. So what we can do is work in teams. We can try and catch these animals. We can try and chase them into our nets. We can herd them using this method called pae pae. That's why this program, we specifically call this pae pae o nava ekolu, where we herd these animals and chase them into nets downstream in our 3 streams in our watershed. So these guys, they're chasing these animals. I know the water got a little brown because they kind of stirred up when they're stomping around and herding the animals. But what we get in these nets here, you folks see a lot of natives there, right? There's not a lot of natives in our urban streams here in the city. But we can't just go on a field trip without learning about what they are. Why are they so important? So in this first lesson together, our virtual lesson, we're learning if you can recognize these slides on the left. And we usually bring live animals to classrooms, and we usually get to show you a lot more close in person, but I know that can't do that right now because I can't talk to you guys in person. So we're trying to do the next best thing. I can talk to you guys online or in this video that you're watching right now. You would usually get trained before going on a field trip, just like those students were on, because we need to know about safety. We need to know how to work together. We need to know how to identify each of our species that are going to be in our net. We need to know how to handle them properly. We don't want to stress them out. We got to learn about what to wear before we can go on this field trip like we see here in lesson 3. And in our 4th lesson, you guys can take that information, those numbers that you've counted of all those species, and understand what that means. Is it good or is it bad? Is this stream healthy? Is it not healthy? What can we do to help it? Are we improving it by doing what we are doing in the stream? Well, you guys might be wondering, when we have a big net full of fish, what do we do with it afterwards? All right, so there might be a native underneath that pile of invasive catfish there. And that is not someplace we want our animals to be. So we need to take them out right away. And we will separate them out first in a bucket that is aerated there. You might see in that black bucket there. But the invasives go in a separate bucket. And we're going to talk about that right now. So this student here is separating out a bass, separating out an opu, separating out a crayfish. And all of these species, again, native versus non-native, they go in 2 separate buckets. The natives will get put back in the stream afterwards because that's where they belong. And the invasives go in a separate bucket like you see here. They're going to be put in stream water where we have something added to it called clove oil. And you might have heard of cloves before. It's a seasoning that we use in food. It is something that that smells kind of fragrant and nice. But when we add it to stream water in a small amount, maybe just like about that much of it into that bucket, these fish will knock out and they will go to sleep. And if we put enough of it in there, they will die. And I don't enjoy killing any of these animals, but it's very important that you understand that these animals don't belong in the stream. And you might think this is cruel and inhumane to these animals that we're taking out. But the problem is that what's happening to our native species is very unfair. It is also very cruel. It's a very slow and torturous process to have them being outcompeted and their populations slowly and slowly decreasing, and maybe even faster decreasing once there's a lot of these species here. So you have to think about it, what is more fair? Is it that we're gonna leave the problems how they are, where these invasive animals are creating declines in population of our native species, or are we gonna try to do something about it? We need to keep these fish out of streams in the first place so that we don't have to worry about catching these fish and taking them out of the stream, or any of them even dying. Let's keep them in our fish tanks where they belong, keep them at the pet store, or maybe think about the type of pets you buy before you buy them. Make sure you know what type to buy so that you know you can take care of them and not have to worry about how to dispose of them or get rid of them. Do not flush any of these animals or these pets down the toilet. That is not what you're supposed to do. If you feel that your parents think it's okay to do this, especially after they die, I understand. But what's a better thing to do with animals, especially after they die, is that we can bury them in the ground. So we're going to see here, this is our natives, but our invasives, after we put them to sleep with the clove oil, we're going to take them in coolers of ice to a farm where they can be composted and buried so they can be used as nutrients for growing plants. This particular place is a farm and agroforestry center where they replant natives into the. They also grow a lot of food too. After this program has been running for about 4.5 years now, we haven't been catching as many invasives. So we can't take like a small handful of fish and think they're going to use it or think it's very useful, especially when they have a big machinery like this digging big holes to compost these animals. So I've been more recently using it in my garden. And this is my garden. Here, there's all types of fruit trees growing. There's all types of vegetables growing. And I even bury food scraps, things like the parts of the fish like you might see on the screen, the parts of the fish that I don't eat. And I bury them in the ground to be composted. I don't want you guys to think that fertilizer is the main reason why we're doing this. It really has to do with some of the justice and I think and the fairness that our native species deserve, because they're losing a lot of their habitat because of people like us. And the people like us have to change our ways and try to help fix these problems. Enough pictures about vegetables and harvesting. We do this at about 20 different sites, and you guys can go to about 8 of these sites virtually. We have a lot of virtual field trips you can see that are recorded on YouTube and on our website, but we can probably go on a live field trip where I can go out into a stream and you can see first person point of view and communicate with me, and we can talk about what to catch, what we expect to catch, how many we expect to catch. We can go and chase some animals together. I'll have a camera in my mouth and we'll be talking as I catch fish, and you'll see it right in front of the camera. These fish icons represent a site, and we'll figure out which one is best for you guys, especially if your school is near any one of these sites. What's more important, besides just catching fish for fun or getting fertilizer out of this activity, is really understanding the data. Are we helping out the stream? Over time, are the average amount of natives on each field trip we're catching, is it going up? Is it going down? Is it staying the same? Over the past 4 years, can you see in this table, are the average amount of natives caught on an average field trip going up? I know there's a lot of decimals in there, but I'm hopefully thinking that you can see that it's going up over time. What about the number of invasives that we're catching on average per field trip that we go on? I mean, we've caught a lot of fishes to date, like to current, we've caught a lot, but on an average field trip, we catch about this much in 2017, all the to 2020. Is it going up or is it going down? You should be observing that it's going down. What about the weight of these animals? On average, that bucket of 300 invasive animals that we just captured in 2017 weighed about 15 pounds. On average in 2018, that was about 8.5 pounds, and it starts to drop more and more. But unfortunately, in 2020, we didn't really get to finish off the year very well because we only did field trips in January and February. And then after that, there was the COVID pandemic when we couldn't go on field trips anymore. But hopefully, when we are allowed to go on field trips again, we'll start to see our numbers decline again. But they might be really high when we come back because some of these invasive animals may have come back because we can't go on any field trips right now, like I said. Also, I want to point out that these students here on the top left-hand side of your screen, I'm pretty sure they look younger and they are in kindergarten. And they caught this many animals, over 600 animals. And it took them a long time to count how many animals were in there. But we had a lot of students and we had a lot of adults there, so we got through them a lot faster that way. And this picture or this video on the right, this is a bunch of oopu that we caught in another net on another site, but that is not what it usually looks like. This is a lot of oopu nakea. None of that data, none of that success happens without help from students like you, from schools like yours, from hearts as big as yours. Thank you so much for tuning in at this time. If you folks have any questions, I would love to entertain them now. But if you don't, I would like to go a little bit more forward and talk about some photos of these animals so you can better recognize them for a virtual field trip together.